this is about how to create the ideal environment. And we have a nice progression in a way, because Leticia, you're a theoretical physicist.
Yes.
And so you're interested in creating a local environment, perhaps within what you might call a lab, as Luis called it, his computer, but more, and your colleagues. And then May-Britt, you of course have a lab and also an institute. And then Gulnar, you have not only a lab and an institute, but a whole university to look after. So there's a sort of progression of size. And let's start with something you already mentioned in the last session, May-Britt, the need to nurture a local environment that is sort of kind and concerned and human, if you like. Would you like to say just a tiny bit more about that, and then I'll...
So thank you for asking that, Adam, because it's extremely important for me, but it's also extremely difficult. Because sometimes it's difficult to calm people down, but it's all about calming people down and that people feel safe. And typically, we talked about questions earlier, and then we as humans, we sometimes feel it's okay to laugh at other people. And I don't think we should do that to put people down. You can laugh at me because I love to laugh with you, but don't laugh at people so that they feel bad. And that is something that we try to practice with us too, that if people have a question and it's difficult to understand, then sometimes people, like teenagers, what a question. But then it's so much more important to try to think about what is this question. All questions are almost a Holy Spirit, because we just need to be curious about what is this person thinking about asking this question, rather than laugh and say, what a stupid question.
And that's very true, but you know, often one thinks of a lab as being a competitive place where, you know, it's very high energy, people are striving, and the idea of calm doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with that.
No, exactly. And I'm so pleased when I experience in our lab meetings, for example, that people are so curious that they can't stop themselves from asking constructive questions to the person who's presenting. Then I'm so proud, because then I know we have a good environment. And then when people experience this, then they see that it's good not only for the presenter and for the project, but it's good for the whole lab. And then we just go through this process over and over again as a learning procedure. And it works.
Leticia, thank you. Leticia, do you want to talk about what it takes to build a productive local environment, how you handle people?
Yeah, well, productive maybe is a key word, but it's also at the core of the problems, right? So we live in a world that productivity is essential in many evaluations, and I think that one key aspect of an optimal research environment is one in which you respect the person that the scientist is, or the student, everybody in there. And if you ask ever more, that this person should be doing more and more, like more research, more publications, more in quantity, really. At some point, you reach a level in which you're asking too much from this person, and you cannot forget the scientist is a person, has a family, has a life, and a lot of responsibilities, bureaucracy, and so on. So I think an optimal research environment, in the end, should be one that respects the fact that you have a limited amount of time to work, you have other aspects of your life and so on. And in that sense, I think we should ask for a productivity that is more of quality and less of quantity. I think if we go in this direction to have more quality work instead of quantity, and the evaluations should be like that, like asking for more quality instead of quantity, I think we reach many points that will create a better environment for a researcher to work on.
It's very true, but for most of us, you have to go through quite a lot of quantity to get any quality out at the end. It's kind of difficult to, to just be quality. I mean, it's a difficult thing. And when we talk to laureates, I don't know what you'd say, May-Britt, but there's often been a period of their life where they've worked so terribly hard. How do you square that with the...
Yeah, working hard doesn't mean that you are producing a lot of papers at the same time. You have a lot of examples historically that people who have worked hard for years to get one very, very important result for humanity. So, yeah, I think it's about hard work all the time, but not necessarily asking for a paper every 3 months and so on.
No. And is that the sort of pressure that you feel that there is?
Yeah, well, me and my colleagues, so I think we are all in the same boat where productivity numbers are being asked for all the time, and sometimes you don't have the time to invest in a very nice project that you really needed to sit down and invest for many months. And
Gulnar, please.
I do agree with Leticia. We are losing quality if we don't ask for more quality in our work. So I think that quantitative papers and the numbers are not so important as would be think what can be something that can transform the reality and can do something else and not the same. And I do agree with Leticia. And for all the time, we should never forget that our commitment is with diversity and democracy. Having this, we would have a very good quality, and our work, our research would be very, very large and would embrace more people.
They're wonderful sentiments, and I mean, everyone would agree, but for instance, you are rector of the university, you're making a lot of appointments, and presumably you're using the same metrics that everybody else is using, choosing ambitious, fast-moving people who are productive. How do you do it?
For sure, I'm losing it, but I don't mind with that. There's no problem for me because I want to do something that can change the universe, can get more people coming to the universe. I think that we can have more policies and actions and strategies that could claim for better work, but claim for investments in public university. So I'm not afraid of losing papers or numbers and metrics.
Please.
No, just a tiny comment. So I agree about this work-life balance, and of course, scientists also have the science as a hobby. But in addition, what we try to do in our lab, I know that is difficult when it's theoretical work that you do, but what we try to do in our lab, especially for both for PhD students and postdocs, that people work together so that the workload is less, but quality is extremely high. And that helps at least, because then you know that the few papers that you do in your PhD, they are really high quality. At least that is the aim. And then you know you can do that because there's a good group of people working together, and then it's possible. Because for one person to do enough papers and enough or good enough quality is extremely difficult. But my supervisor, he said to us, if you have one good quality paper every 5th year, then you should be proud of yourself. And I think that was such a good advice, because when I started in science, people counted, and they counted, and they counted. And then Edward and I, working together, we listened to our supervisor and said, we go for quality. We want to change the world. We want to tidy the field. We want to understand. That is why we do science. And somehow we were extremely lucky that we survived. Because it might be challenging, but...
There are certain words that are coming up during the day that I think are very important. One was empathy. This word you're using, calm. I'd like to investigate it a bit more, because it could apply to any work environment. How do you create a calm environment? So above and beyond the idea of questions and papers that you're publishing, how does calm apply let's start. How do you deal with calm in the university setting?
I think that we have a very good experience, and I agree with May-Britt that we should work together. And in Brazil, we had a very, very important experience in my field, at public health, concerning microcephaly and Zika virus.
Mm-hmm.
So many people from different places, different labs, different research groups, different states in Brazil started working together just to know what was happening, because the number of cases of microcephaly were starting in an amount that was never seen before. And then it was possible with this network, very large network, interdisciplinary, but also with engaging different people from different institutions. And it was possible to prove that the association was Zika virus and microcephaly. Mm-hmm. And after that, we had the COVID pandemics. And in this period, the same group, but including more and more people, it was possible to show to the government of the Brazilian government that they were completely wrong, because they tried to not emphasize the science, also the vaccines, and all these people working together with science and social movements was possible to do something different. And the numbers of deaths, unfortunately, Brazil had a very, very large number of deaths, but this number was not so high as we did not have this work together, which we called Frente pela Vida, including scientists, movements, entities, universities, and I can see here some colleagues that were working together in Frente pela Vida. So it was a very, very, I would say, recent, but example that working together is possible to having better conditions of life, conditions of health.
A model of how the public health sector should work as a network. Yes, indeed. Thank you.
So if I may add,
Yes.
about collaboration, I believe it's one path to get more quality and more important work, because I think when you're collaborating with different people, everybody's pushing themselves to go further, right? So it's much better to look for interesting collaborations. Challenging collaborations are always a very nice thing to make the work go a step further. So I think that's certainly one way to go further in quality and less in quantity, maybe. So I think the point is that it's not that we should not look at metrics in the end. I think metrics are important, but they should not be the only guidance to how you judge people. So otherwise, we'll just lose much of the quality, in my opinion. And we will also have a lot of scientists being burned out, as we are already seeing, and so on. And this goes against the calm, right?
Exactly.
If you have a calm environment, you don't have a lot of stressed people that are burned out. So I think that's...
I suppose I was thinking of it.
Can I just say
Please.
something? Because if people are stressed, as I say, science is about being creative. And if you are angry, afraid, if you are having all these negative emotions, your focus is being narrow, and you don't see open doors, you don't see new solutions, and you can't be creative. So it's the responsibility for leaders to calm their people down, I think. And then you asked, what can you do? And of course, there are so many things you can do. But I think here in Brazil, for example, and I've traveled even as a student here in South America, you are not afraid to touch each other. So when I do like this with you, do you calm down a bit more when I do that? And I'm sorry, or I'm interested in you. So such things, which for Scandinavians and so on, oh,
Yeah.
But it's so important. And also...
It's interesting that the Scandinavian on the panel is the one doing the touching, and the Brazilians are not touching anybody.
And there's another thing, because if you think about yourself sitting here, maybe you are very tired and listening to all these people talking and so on, and you can measure by yourself how calm do you feel. And there are several techniques that we talked about that you can even just count to 1, 2, 3, and so on. And you feel, you get, and also if the environment is joyful, if you can laugh. You saw me dancing out behind here, just because it's fun. So if we have more fun, we relax more. It doesn't mean that we don't take our science serious, because we have to do that. We have to be really, really honest and serious with science, but we can still be human beings. And if we are human beings and have fun, at least I relax.
Exactly. It's because, I mean, this whole day is devoted to thinking how we can get the best out of science for society. But the question we can also ask is, how can we get the best out of scientists, out of ourselves?
Exactly. How to get the best out of talents.
Yeah. So, in the tiny little bit of time we have left, what single piece of advice would you give to yourself or your environment to get the best out of things? Well, how would you change it to get more out of your people, out of yourself? Or we could just be silent and calm.
I think empathy, again, is a good word. And maybe something that is a bit fashionable right now. It's try to be careful not to only do urgent things all the time. So take care of the important things from time to time. So reserve some time for the important, not only the urgent, because there's too much.
Mm.
I would say that alone you can do anything, but together with many people you can do many things. So I would emphasize the importance of collective work.
That's a very good.
Working together.
Thank you. It's a very good introduction to the next panel. That's perfect. Thank you. May-Britt, I guess the last word comes to you again.
What I would do different? Or?
Well, what do you think? I mean, you've already said so much beautiful things about creating the right environment, but yeah, what do you think is the most important thing to hold on to when you go to your institute, when you go to your lab? What do you think is the key to getting the best out of your people?
So, as we all have talked about today, and I think we share, we should respect each other and see ech other. And if we can be curious, we learn so much. And I don't know. Maybe.
That was perfect. Lovely. And in the last 10 seconds, why don't you count us down? 10, 9, 8, 7. Just make everyone calm.
Sorry?
I thought you should just... I thought we should follow your counting and be calm. You should count to 10, and we should all calm down.
That would be fantastic. So if you first measure where your breathing is it up here or is it down here? And then we start like this, and then we count to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Does it feel good?